I'm with the do.
Hello and Merry Christmas
Merry
in
Christmas.
maybe April. It's April Fools. It's not Christmas. It is American Girl Talk. It's Celia and Caroline coming to
Ding
you
dong.
almost live. We have gotten behind on our recordings, which we usually do ahead of time, and we are hot on the press of the same week as you guys. So whatever's going on in your world is going on in our world, and whatever going on in Molly's world is happening in Christmas 1944.
So, a little less relevant.
And we're here to tell you that Molly is less of a brat in this book. And that was kind of a fun experience after having such shocking bratness in the past two books. So,
I think it's humbling to know that holidays make children behave better.
yeah, they crash out a little bit, but then they like pull it together for old Sandy Claus. And that's a great note. If you're listening with your little kids, which who knows if you are or not, we only have we have 200 subscribers on YouTube, and thank you to everyone who is on our YouTube. We have way less on Spotify, etc. audio. So I think the moral of that story is we're gorgeous and people like to watch us talk.
That's
But
true.
if you're listening and you have a little kitty or you're doing things like that, I would say don't listen to this episode with them because we kind of discuss the secrets of Santa Claus, and we don't want anyone to be like to catch on to what Santa's doing, you know. So turn it off if someone in your house is really excited for Santa next year, and then
Yeah.
turn it back on when you're alone. And that's your warning. Otherwise, in the next bits, things are going to be interesting. I would like to say, as I just said, thank you to all of our subscribers. If you're listening, please like this video. Please subscribe. Leave us a little comment. Leave us any sort of like indication that you're a live human being, so we know you're not a bot. And if you
Or
are a
write like a
bot,
bot.
write us a haiku, write us a poem, tell us something that bots only know, because I'm curious. And
Just like one little secret.
a little follower is a little follower. If bots love American girls, then we love bots.
That's true.
But yeah, we're talking about Molly's surprise today. We got another holiday girl, and we're halfway through Molly. So I wanted to ask you, Celia, how are you feeling about our Molly gal so far?
You know, I had some strong feelings right out the gate, right at the start. And I've got to tell you right now, my feelings now are just lukewarm. Like I ran a hot bath. Ooh, dip my toe in, too hot. Don't want to get in. Then I let it sit too long. Now I put my foot in, lukewarm. Still don't want to get in. I'm not sold on our gal, but I'm not her anti anymore.
Yeah, and I will say her books are very easy to read. And not that any of them
Yes.
are difficult, but it does feel like we can kind of we're guys, we're dedicated, we're listening, we're reading, we're writing. But it feels like they're slightly more skimmable than some of the other ones. It's easier to kind of just like fly through the Molly pages when we're on a tight deadline, which is kind of nice because we are.
It's interesting because I feel like as our most modern girl, in theory, we have the most materials available about the time that she was alive and living in, especially a wartime. And yet, Samantha's world still feels the most vibrant of the
Yes.
three we've been in so far. So I'm interested to see if that trend will continue, perhaps over time with her next couple of books. Maybe
Mhm.
Molly will feel just as vibrant in turn, but right now, she feels a little lacking. In this book, I felt like I didn't get a character development from her.
I agree, but I will counter that with one thing I do like with the Molly books, and one thing I remember liking with the Molly books when I read them was I do feel like even in comparison to Samantha, her family is a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah,
Like
that's fair.
I do feel like Kirsten as like look, we all have a special spot for Kirsten, but my god, like it feels like you're like the artwork in Kirsten's book completely explains what it feels like to read a Kirsten book. It is kind of a hazy colored pencil, like
Yeah.
nub of a colored pencil, not sharp lines. And so Kirsten having siblings, even though we had those two one-off books with Lars and Peter that were kind of focused on her adventure with a brother, they didn't show up. They didn't show up before those books, and so we didn't really have a context for them. I do like that, like, at least in all the Molly books, we have, like in the first 2 or the first 1 or 2, you have Ricky being a little bit of a personality, and then Jill kind of being a little bit less, but still being there, which kind of makes honestly sense for your 14-year-old older sister. So having them kind of a little bit stronger in this book, I feel like was kind of helpful in like telling the story a little bit better. And I do feel like you kind of get a out of the girls we've read so far, I think Samantha's world is the most vibrant, but Molly's like home structure is the most like solid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that feeling, especially since in this Christmas book, she's not alone for the majority of it, whereas in the other 2 Christmas book, well, I guess Kirsten has a little more activity in her house in her Christmas book, but Molly is always talking with her siblings for the majority of the happenings in this one.
And I do like that it's like a pretty much collaborative effort between Molly and her siblings to like do Christmas right. Like
Yeah,
I do
it's
like that
cute.
like Molly isn't the hero of this book, really. And I think that's kind of nice because she doesn't deserve to be, and she hasn't done anything in previous books to make us
She
feel
hasn't
like
earned it.
mm-hmm. And I will say this is a kind of our first bottle episode of an American Girl book because they like leave their house, I think, exactly once in this book to go get the
Mhm.
Christmas tree. And
Yep.
it really felt very condensed, which kind of felt a little bit more like at least a modern holiday too, where you're just with your family. Your friends are doing things with their family, and you're just kind of going through the motions of like a holiday day, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I
But
think
yeah.
it was cute. It's a cute book if nothing to say for the actual plot happenings.
Yeah, and that's what we're about to get into. So without further ado, let's do it. So we start with chapter 1, A Different Christmas. So Molly is sitting with her siblings. They're all sitting in the living room having a classic 1940s family powwow in the living room, listening to the radio. Jill is knitting and Molly is writing a letter to their dad. And in typical Molly fashion, the letter is like, "Hey dad, like love you, miss you, but by the way, like we haven't gotten your presents yet. So where are they?"
Just wondering.
Which I did feel like even when I read it like just on the first page, I was like, that's kind of a weird thing to ask. Like,
I think it I think it does show to her character though, right? Because I know we'll get to it, but her sister points out because her sister's reading it is being nosy. Like that's a rude thing to write,
yeah.
essentially. I don't know if I ever would have done that as a kid and been like, I haven't received your gift yet. Wondering where it is for me.
Yeah. And then I was kind of thinking about it and I maybe like I didn't grow up in like any sort of military family or anything. But I kind of didn't think in the context of, like, if someone's away, especially abroad, except for modern day when I guess you could, like, Amazon something to someone pretty easily. Before the advent of, like, online shopping and easily ordering things, I don't know if I would have assumed that people who were abroad fighting or just out of the country would be giving people gifts that easily.
No. Also, am I right to assume this is the first Christmas he's been away for? It seems. Right. Okay. So I also think I know there's no precedent for him missing, but it seems very funny that their mother has set the expectation for a lot of things in wartime, like, you know, rationing and learning lessons and preserving things. And yes, and many war allegories. It seems funny that she didn't prepare them at all that maybe no gifts from Papa are coming.
Yeah, it seems one thing I'll say just as a I mentioned it a few times throughout this. I'm pretty sure I will because I have it in the outline. But mom is like checked out this book, kind of. Mom is having a tough time
Yeah.
with this holiday.
She she's like, "I know Christmas is coming in theory, but in practice, it's none of my business."
She's really like shrugging off the holiday, kind of.
Yeah, she's like, "Yes, oh, yep, okay, Monday laundry, Tuesday grocery shopping, Wednesday Christmas, Thursday send the kids to camp, whatever." She's
Yeah,
moving on.
but
It's
it
like a
does.
to-do list
Yeah, and to your
item.
point, mom has been really like gung ho about like telling us what we are sacrificing for Christmas. So it does feel a little bit weird that she wouldn't be like, "Hey guys, just so you know, like I've been talking to dad. I know he wants to give us presents, but just so you know, it's going to be kind of hard for him to send us presents all the way from England. They might not come on time. They might not even
Might
if
not
it's a
if they
bad
come
week,
at
like
all.
yeah. And so it just I don't know. I think it's a weird expectation to ask someone for a gift ever. Like, I know as a
Yeah.
kid you expect Christmas gifts. Like, I know that's not like how dare she, but I don't even remember as a kid if I like would have asked someone like, I didn't get a Christmas gift from you, or we haven't gotten any. Like from I guess like the best comparison I would have is like aunts and uncles. Like
Sure.
if my, like, aunt hadn't sent us a package one year, I don't think, like, if I talked to her on the phone that Christmas, I would have been like, "We didn't get
Where
your
was
gift
that?
yet." Yeah. I don't know, it's just it's very Molly, I guess, and I will say, like, kind of props to Jill in this book being like, "Hey, bestie, you should calm down with that, like, present shit, like, it might not happen." And
She's
I
a
rem
realist this year.
she's a realist. Molly is annoyed because Jill's big word of the year is like realistic. Because Jill's 14. So she's our oldest
She's an
American
adult.
girl. She's an adult. She's a freshman in high school. And kind of back to what we talked about with Elspeth. Ugh. She's kind of a grown woman now. So she doesn't have time
Yes.
for these childish
No
pursuits that
such
Molly's about.
things.
No, no, no. She's what? She's 5 years older than Molly. I was that's the same age gap as me and my brother. And you better believe I thought he was dumb and silly and little and bratty. And Jill's absolutely right, and so was I.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Big
so
sister
Jill,
energy.
yeah, so Jill kind of like tells her off, and then Molly's like, "No, but Dad'll get me presents. Like Dad always gets me presents. Dad would never not get me presents, right, Mom?" And Mom's like, "Mm, "We'll
Her
see."
mom in that art looks depressed. She's for sure on some sleeping meds.
Yeah, some 1940s housewife relaxers, some like
Mhm.
uppers or downers or something like that.
100%.
And I will say, Mom is like super unhelpful in this book. She's kind of vague about everything, any suggestion someone has, any sort of question they have. She kind of is like, "Mm." But you
Who's
know
to
what?
say?
You know what Mom is focused on this book is Brad.
It's Brad City.
Mom and Brad are like attached at the hip. Like they do everything together. They are like we'll talk about it more. We'll get to it. But like even in this scene, Mom is like, I don't know, like maybe we'll get presents, maybe we won't. But time to put Brad to bed. And then she and Brad go down the hall like
La 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 la.
'twas the night before. And Mom is like saying it, and then Brad is saying it back. And then they
It's very
leave.
cute, but it is also like, all right, mom, pack it up.
And again, I have to go to my own experience with this, having a younger sibling. When you have a younger sibling who's like 5 and you're not 5, there's a level where you, like, think that they're trying to be cute in a way, and maybe they are, but it does feel a little bit like, "Calm down." Like, "You know better than this," because 'cause they're a brat to you, and then they're, like,
Right.
precocious to your parents in a way that you're kind of like,
How do I get a little bit of that?
"Oh my god," I remember my brother when he was little, he would use his normal little kid voice talking to us, like, me and my sister, be like, "Me,
Uh-huh.
me, 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 me," and then, like, my mom would come to him and he'd be like, "Mommy, do you think, like, Santa is, like, gonna leave me, um, a, like, robot?" And I was like, "Oh my god, he's lying."
You're like, this is a
And
scam.
yeah, and it's like and Brad is just so, like, ugh, Brad. Like, he's fine, but he doesn't do anything besides just, like, be a ghost,
Be
like,
a child.
be a child. But
Be
so
a
mom
child
is
about the worst
yeah,
thing you can do.
the worst thing you can do is just be the most child in a family, you know?
I'm always saying that.
And we're always saying that. And remember that, children listening to this podcast, you should
File
have
that
said
away.
because right now here it comes. So Jill sits down with like Ricky and Molly and is like, "Look, guys, like Dad's not here. It's the war. Like we're gonna have to kind of suck it up this Christmas and expect things to be like kind of sucky. Like we're just gonna get you yucky like socks and like underwear for Christmas, and we get some more. Yeah, we get some of the art that you like, Celia, of like sad socks.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, although the handkerchief in it kind of looks scandalized. It's like holding its little corner up to its mouth, like ooh, hoo, hoo.
It's the handkerchief that Samantha wanted to give Corn Dog
Big time.
as revenge for being a woman who dated her uncle.
Yeah, God forbid. And then her mom later.
And like Jill is like kind of a dud, I will say. She's definitely like running for like some sort of student body position. She's not a cool
Yes.
kid.
No.
But I do kind of like that she's the only person in the book who kind of checks Molly a little bit, you know? And is like,
Yeah,
"Shut up."
it's very much giving, like you said, like Elspeth, like I'm playing pretend at like being a grown up, even though I'm like a child.
Yes.
But I think it is like you said, mom's checked out, so somebody's got to be keeping this house on a tight ship.
And it's Jill.
It's Jill big time.
And then Jill kind of alludes to the fact that like Santa's not real, which this whole book kind of alludes to the fact that Santa's not real in kind of an insane way for like a 10-year-old book, because I believe I read these when I was, and I guess I didn't catch on, so I guess it does work.
Doesn't
But
matter. Yeah.
But I think I was 8 or 9 when I read these, and she's basically like, Santa's not bringing gifts this year because we can't afford gifts. And one would beg the question then, well, why does it matter what we can afford?
Right.
If
Because
it's Santa
Santa's rich in love and generosity.
and he makes them himself with his little elves.
Yeah. Up in his workshop.
So whereas why would that matter that like mom is busy, you know?
Yeah. I did think it was interesting. There is a line in it, like you said, that it is basically like, well, I wouldn't go expecting anything that's not homemade from Santa.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I wish there had been like one more direct kind of head nod to the audience as an adult that is like, we're all in on the joke, right?
I think there is one later, and I'll talk about it.
Okay, I'm excited.
But Molly gets like super bummed out by this conversation. So she goes up to her room and she sits on her windowsill, still wearing her shoes, which is like kind of insane because she's been home all night and she should take off her saddle shoes. Like,
The art is so cool. It's so funny. She looks so depressed.
and I totally that may be the one time I really relate to Molly, because I too had a windowsill with like a cushion on it on my window as a child that I could sit in and like emo stare out the window when things were just too much.
I do like that. I think that our thumbnail for this episode should be our faces peering in through the window with little Christmas hats on.
We can do a photo shoot this weekend if you'd like to.
Yeah.
You got to do it quick.
My people will talk to your people.
Perfect. But so Molly is sad and she's just thinking about like how Christmas is going to be tough, and mostly because dad's not there, but also because she's not going to get the gifts that she wants. Yeah, and what she wants more than anything is what every American girl wants, which is a doll. And I will say, for the first time since we've read these books, I've been like, isn't she too old for a doll?
Okay, I was going to say she feels older than she is in this
Okay.
book to me.
Yes.
Do you feel that way? I'm
yeah.
assuming, right? Because I agree. When she was like, oh, boy, do I wish I had a doll to go exploring with. I was like, okay,
Okay,
10-year-old, enough. And then I was like, I own so many toys and tchotchkes as a 27-year-old woman that maybe I should shut up. But
well, I guess it just like, I feel like with Samantha and Kirsten, it made sense because they lived in a world with less toys, you know?
yes.
And so a doll was like, especially Kirsten with little Sari and her milkweed sack.
I know.
And then like Samantha was Victorian, and dolls are like the epitome of the Victorian toy,
Right.
I kind of feel like, you know?
Yes.
And so the fact that like Molly lives in a time period, I feel like, where there is like a plethora of toy options, wanting a doll that like, and I guess like my one caveat will be, is it like a Barbie doll? You know, if it's like a Barbie, I get it, because I too was a Barbie obsessed girl. But like, even with my American Girl doll, I guess I played with it when I was like 9, but only with like a friend. I played Barbies alone. I played Polly Pockets alone. But if I was playing with like my American Girl dolls, I would play with a friend. I wouldn't be like, me and Kit are on an adventure and she's my best friend. Feels a
You know what's
little
funny? I was the same way. I don't think I ever played with my American Girl dolls alone.
yeah.
They felt too big to be like living out a play fantasy, if you
Yes.
will.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, that's like my small friend versus my Barbies were like, I control you like I'm God.
And yeah, and Barbies are kind of like a gateway drug to like Sims, you know,
100% agree.
because you're like,
Dress them up, dress them down, make them kiss, give them a job,
make their child be taken by social services.
drop them from high buildings, kill them.
I had like an entire my old house had a basement that had all these old bookshelves in it that we didn't have that many books on. And so I asked my dad if we could take any of the books off the bottom, like 4 shelves, which were for like Atlas style books.
Mm-hmm.
And I made Barbie apartments.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
so me and my neighbors all had these Barbie apartments. I may have
Yeah.
told this before on this, but
I
we
don't
had
think
these
so
Barbie
because I love this.
Okay, so we made these Barbie apartments, and it was like, I remember I always wanted those Barbie dream houses, but my mom rightfully was like, that is so much money for no reason. Those will be broken in a week. Like, no, we'll get you everything but, you know? And so I had like I didn't have any houses and I had friends. And so we would take like cardboard, that like colored cardboard paper, and we would make like floors and like wallpaper, and then we would take like those old school cell phone chairs and use those as like furniture in the houses, and we would just do all these little things. And my god, we had like a soap opera like going
Yeah,
on.
of
Like it was
course.
like the stories were like to be continued. It wasn't like a new game every time we played. It was
Ugh, I love
like
that.
the neighbors would be over and it would be like 2 of our dolls were in a fight, and then it would be 6 o'clock and their mom would call them to go home. And we would be like, all right, so like next time we pick up, like Juliet is in a fight with like Marie about the fact that like Kelly slapped like Molly at school. And like it was like it was a whole like
Yeah, of course.
universe.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, it was like you could like it was insane. And so like
It's a
that I
torrid
get.
affair.
Yeah, and that I get with like the dolls and stuff. But like this is again, we all had American Girl dolls too, but by this time I don't think we were playing with them as much. So
Yeah.
I did feel a little bit like I did feel for the first time being like, this feels like a juvenile pursuit of hers, you know?
Yeah. I feel like she should have wanted I also feel like I wanted her to want something else. Her saying a doll also didn't feel Molly coded.
Yes, some of this
I
doesn't feel Molly coded, you know?
I that is my issue with this book, I think. We were talking about it a little before we started recording, so I'll bring the thought kind of forward. I feel like her personality is so strong in the first 2 books. And in this book, I felt like I felt like we had American Girl Christmas quotas to hit. So we were like, she has to have a doll. She has to support her family in some way. She's got to talk to her siblings. Happy ending, goodbye. And look, I get it's an American Girl book. I get it's going to be a happy ending. But when I was reading it, I was sort of like, she wants a doll? I feel like she'd want like a dress or like something that would give her status with her like other like girlfriends at school. Or where like Jill
Exactly.
wants the fancy hat that all the other girls have that she's saving her money up for. Like, I feel like Molly is also that type of girl. So
Yeah.
I agree that the doll feels both like a misstep contextually, like for Molly and what we know of her. And I just don't believe you that Molly wants a doll.
Well, and also like kind of on that same point, you kind of mentioned it, but it's clear that the doll is just because they sell dolls for the dolls. The dolls, dolls, dolls. So as we've discussed.
Yes, 100%.
But even I don't know. It just it felt a little bit like, oh, that has not rung true to anything. Like in the last book, she really wanted rubber red rain boots. Like, why is that
Yes.
not what she wants? Or like some sort of there just feels like there would have been something else that was more aligned with Molly's personality than a
Exciting
doll.
to her. I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's sad. Mom comes in, as mom does, and is like, what you doing in here, second youngest child, who I forget about? And Molly's like, sad, dad's not here. And I love his little fun Christmas haha surprises because dad's like a prankster and dad is always just like joshing around.
Yeah, he's a goopy guy.
And so then mom's like, me too, but like we all have our own little surprises coming. I've got a few, wink, wink. I bet you've got a few, wink, wink. And then mom leaves. And then we get to
And
chapter
then
2,
mom leaves.
the aptly named Making Surprises.
That's right.
So the first surprise, Molly wakes up and Molly is like, oh my God, cinnamon buns. So she puts on a corduroy pants and plaid shirt. And I was like, Molly kind of dresses like me.
That's true. It's cute though. She's
One
pulling
thing-
it off.
One thing about me is I love a plaid shirt.
That's true.
I love to wear a plaid shirt as like a jacket, especially because we live in Texas. I don't
It's a
need
good-
more than that.
It's a good layering piece without being a heavy like zip up to carry around.
Yeah, and you can tie it around your waist without it being bulky, and it's cute. So
They're very chic.
if I was a 1940s child, I think I would have dressed exactly like Molly, and I think my mom would have hated it because she has never liked the way I dressed, and I dress almost identical to a 1944 war child, apparently.
Well, and you know what? Sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. So Molly runs downstairs and scarfs down a cinnamon bun, and Ricky is being the man of the house, and he's like, I'm gonna do the decorating. Molly, come and carry some boxes with me. So they go downstairs. It is now December 22nd, actually, because it's the next day.
Yeah.
And
We're
it feels
sprinting.
it feels insanely late to be decorating, right?
Yes. I feel like, again, I feel like there are just things off about this family that are wrong. I think the writer got them wrong in this book. I feel like the family, like, you don't think the mom wouldn't have wanted them off her back and been like, all right, kids, December 1st, go get a box, start unpacking stuff, get out of my hair.
Well, it's also like if you decorate at December 22nd, that's a lot of effort to put in for just 2 days of like decorations.
Well, and they don't even, I know the grandparents are supposed to be bringing them their tree, but they don't even have a tree yet either, which I feel like when you have a tree and you decorate a tree, I always have it, like my family usually does it either during or right after Thanksgiving or like the first week of December.
The tree is the one that I kind of get decorating later because my family will do that. We'll decorate everything else, and then we'll get the tree like a week before Christmas. So we'll get it on like the 17th or something, and then we'll just do like a decorating.
Do you guys do a live tree?
Yes, that's why.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one I kind of get, but everything else I'm like, didn't you want to put this up a little earlier so you have like, especially on a year when Christmas, especially on a year when Christmas might feel a little bit like the whole vibe is a little sad, or I would want to decorate ahead of time and just have at least some cheer. But
yeah, a little joy, a little something to take the edge off.
Exactly. But so Molly is like going down with Ricky, and he is like, Molly's like, do you think you can handle this decoration? And he calls her a fuss budget.
Yeah, I did like that.
Which I need to look up exactly what that means, but I think I might start using it because I've never heard it before, and it's kind of like,
it's pretty good.
Don't be such a fuss budget, you know?
And if you say to the wrong person, they'll take it like harsher than it is, which I think is like what makes it cool.
A 12-year-old said it, so it can't be terrible. But
yeah, exactly.
Definitely, definitely like who the Dickens. I think it's something we're adding back into our vocab.
Yeah, we should bring back like old timey, vintage insults and slang.
Yeah, I'm into it. And then they bring it upstairs, and Jill is like, ugh, those decorations. And this is the most 14-year-old thing Jill has ever said in this book, where she's like, everything we have is tacky. We should do something classy, like dress the tree in Americana fashion. So we should have just red, white, and blue, and like a flag. And I'm like, that's so cool to think that your tacky ornaments would be made better by doing something tackier. Yeah. But it feels very like 14-year-old idea of like what a classy Christmas looks like.
What classy Christmas? Let's read this Americana.
Like this was like underratedly a very funny moment because it is just a like secondary thing. But I think about like when you're when you're in your teens and you're reading things like 17 magazine and it's telling you what's cool, and you're like, that is cool. Like,
yeah, exactly. Ideas for your Christmas tree, Jersey chic. Yeah. And you're like, what does that mean? And this is ugly.
Yeah, and so Jill is like, "We should do an Americana themed," and Molly's like, "But we always do this," and Jill's like, "Well, it's ugly, gross. Mom, what
Mhm.
do you think?" And Mom's like, I don't care what we do."
They talk a
Uh,
lot about putting balls on their tree.
oh yeah, they want baubles and balls.
Lots of
Uh,
balls. Red balls, blue balls.
Lots of blue balls. And Mom doesn't really care. And Mom is just like, "You know what? I am going out with Brad, and Brad and I are gonna have lunch out. So you guys fend for yourselves." And I'm like, why is Brad getting like lunch out, you know?
There is like a comment in the first chapter where I think it's Jill who's like, I feel sorry for Brad. And then the next thing she really says is just about how like dad is gone. It does feel like mom is like, well, my companion is gone. So one of the children is going to have to be my constant support system.
I think she's parentifying Brad.
She's definitely using him as like a space filler
You think
in
she's telling
her.
Brad like her life stresses and he's like 5 and she's just telling him about like life at the factory and who she's like,
Yeah, I definitely think or I think she's doing that thing where that, like, older people sometimes do when or, like, grandparents, aunts, older aunts and uncles, whatever, where they'll, like, take you to, like, a coffee shop or something where they have friends, and you're there, but you are not a part of it, and they are gonna talk about stuff you don't relate to and don't understand, but you are there. I feel like that's what's happening to Brad. Brad is like, "Why am I on this errand to the mechanic? Why am I on this errand to the grocery store? Why am I sitting at this deli ordering ham at the butcher?" Like, you know, that's what it's giving. Like, he'll grow up and he'll tell like his friends and he'll be like, "Yeah, during the war, like my mom was really weird and took me around all the time. I think it's because she missed my dad."
see, this is interesting because I think you may have more Brad-esque experiences than I do. As a middle child, I would have never been a Brad. I would have never been like singled out to do a single thing with my parents alone because it just doesn't make sense
That's fair.
equation wise. So my sister might as the oldest and my brother might as the youngest, but like me, like it doesn't make sense to bring out the middle kid, you know? Like,
I Yeah, that makes sense because yeah, I am my parents' only child,
yeah.
but I was also on my mom's side, and that's the family that my grandparents, we lived with them briefly when I first moved to Minnesota. Uh, I was their only grandchild for 17 years, I think, is when my baby cousins were born. Well, they're not babies anymore, but yeah, so, like, for 17 years, I was the only grandchild, so my grandmother would just kind of treat me like a doll, to be honest, and be like, "We're going to the bakery," and she'd go sit and talk to these, like, veterans, and I was, like, 9, and I'd eat a cookie, and then we'd be there for, like, 5 hours.
I can't imagine that. That
That
is the
was
nice thing about being the middle.
character development.
Meanwhile, I lived in my basement making my Barbie couple
Barbie
divorce.
apartments.
My Barbie apartments.
My
Yeah,
barpartments.
Ryan and Molly getting a divorce because he cheated on her with Juliet. Something to think
Messy,
about.
messy.
But so Mom and Brad leave for their date,
Yep,
and then immediately Gran and Gramps call and are like, "We are not coming
it's over,
because we have a flat tire and there's no way we can get this fixed before Christmas."
and you're never
Which,
gonna see the tree.
yeah, which I guess I get because it's wartime, but also I feel like kind of a lame excuse for not coming for Christmas.
It does just feel like, oh, one minor inconvenience happened, so now old people don't wanna go.
Yeah. And they had the tree though, so they can't come. And so Jill takes the call and lets Ricky and Molly know. And they are all like, "Well, we're going to jump into action immediately and let's go get a tree ASAP." So Jill pulls together her babysitting money, which she was gonna use on her hat, which is nice. And then Ricky pulls together some of his money. And then Molly goes upstairs and grabs 50 pennies that she was going to give Brad for his Christmas gift and is like, "Here, you can use Brad's Christmas gift."
You can use these 50 pennies that our kid brother who's being toted around everywhere else. He
And
doesn't
no
need them
one ever
anymore.
mentions that she gives away his Christmas gift and that she doesn't come up with a second Christmas gift for Brad.
No, and it's glossed over too in the gift section of the book. They are just like, and then all of the presents were opened at like a certain point. So it
Yes.
is kind of funny. Yeah.
And everyone's like, "That's so nice of you, Molly." I'm like, "It's actually not that nice. She probably has her own money."
That feels Molly. I was gonna say that feels Molly coded.
That is very Molly. Yeah, that
Yeah.
tracks for who we know she is.
Yeah. Brad won't need this 50 cents.
He don't know that I didn't give him a gift. He's a kid. So then they go to the Christmas tree farm and they grab the jankiest, most Charlie Brown-esque tree because it's all they can afford with Brad's 50 pennies.
Yeah,
And-
it's pretty funny.
And they go, and much like the Charlie Brown tree, though, once they decorate it, it looks nice. And then they do have a nice moment while they're decorating where Jill is like, okay, I do like this. And they kind of combine Jill's idea with their regular ornaments. So it's probably a really chaotic tree, but they're all kids, so who cares?
I do like the doodle. It is cute. At the top, though, instead of a star, there is this big star on the tree, notably, but it's not at the top where you think it would be. You know, it's at the top, an American flag.
God bless America.
Because nothing says Christmas like the American flag.
Nothing says Christmas like Uncle Sam watching
That's
over
right.
you. He's
Looking
the
at-
new Santa Claus.
He's the new Santa.
Beard, red hat, he's got the same thing. Who could tell the difference?
Suspiciously similar vibe. And I've
Instead of
never seen the
Cole-
two of them in the same room.
Instead of Cole, he brings you into the army.
I want you to serve your country.
Ho, ho, ho. But Molly and Jill do have a nice moment that I think where Molly basically is like, I just want to know where the presents are because I know that means that Dad is like, okay, and alive. And Jill's like, yeah, I kind of know what you mean. And I will give a valid yes to that because I do kind of get that, like, if Dad doesn't send presents and they expect Dad to send presents, that kind of means where's Dad? Why can't Dad send us a present? What's going on? And, like, it doesn't necessarily mean the worst thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean things are going well. And like they do have limited communication with him. So I kind of get it with that like explanation a little bit more. And then Mom and Brad come home and Mom is like, what the fuck? Tree? Awesome, cool. Doesn't seem to react to his parents not coming though. Don't know if they even tell them. Like
honestly, I think they're like, Mom doesn't need to know. Mom probably forgets. Mom's like an amnesiac now.
Mom doesn't know it. Mom doesn't even know Christmas is in 2 days, so it's fine.
And she never will.
And she won't. And that's why we get to chapter 3, keeping secrets. So, snow alert. Molly wakes up on the 23rd and it's all snow, which is a uniquely amazing experience as a child to wake up.
That's true.
And the world is like, I remember thinking it was going to snow and then you're asleep and your window doesn't quite have the right angle and just like sitting up and then seeing snow and be like, yes.
I don't miss true winter, but I will say that I still as an adult miss some of the whimsy of snow. So like when my friends who still live in snowy climates will post like the first snow, I will like kick my feet in bed and be like, hee hee hee.
Look, the feeling of the first day of snow is it's better, but similar to the feeling of a nice summer rain and the smell you get. It's
100%.
It is magical, even as an adult. When you see the
Yeah,
road
like
covered
big
in snow,
snowflakes and everything gets quiet and everything is like white and blue.
and you're cozy
Especially-
inside.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Especially when like the sky is clear and then also when the snow falls and you know it's sticky. So you also know like in a little bit you can go outside and make a snowman. Oh my God. Again, I don't yearn for the cold, but I do miss like a good snow.
And yeah, and I like snow, take it one day, melt it the next day. I don't need it to stay. I don't need ground slush to form.
In and out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the snow we had in January where it was like everything is shut down. And then it was bad for like what? It wasn't even bad. It like glossed the city.
Yeah. Texas
was
is a really
gone.
fun place to live with snow because they do lose their fucking minds. And if you're from anywhere that's not Texas, you're like, I've seen so much worse. What?
Yeah, you guys have no idea how cool this is because it could be so awful.
Like, why are there 3 cars overturned on the highway? There's like there's a quarter of an inch of snow on the ground.
No, and I've lived here one time where there was like truly nasty, like the bad ice storm. And that was what,
Snowmageddon?
yeah, Snowmageddon warranted. Like people lost power. And then I guess it's happened twice where like I knew people or my place lost power for like a week or like several days in a row. But every other time that people have been like batten down the hatches and prepare, it has almost never been anywhere near as dramatic.
No, the funny thing about Texas is like we won't even have snow in the forecast. It'll just say it's like going to be like 28 degrees and everything will be closed and all the restaurants, bars, food trucks will put a message on their Instagram story being like, everybody stay safe tonight. And I'm like, it's cold, guys.
No, oh my God. That literally was like in February, we had a day like that where I was like, oh, I'm free tonight. Like, I'll go out and do something. And like the bar I was going to go to closed.
Because it was cold.
Yeah. They were like, stay safe out there in the freeze. Yeah. And I was like, the freeze? Or the better part is when it'll be like freezing out or like cold here and rain will be in the forecast and they won't change it from rain to snow when it's actually going to snow.
Yeah.
And then we'll get like the dusting and I'll be like, oh, so it was going to snow today.
Yeah.
Not rain. It didn't rain at all. In fact, it just snowed.
No, they can't
it
handle weather.
frosted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very funny. Anyway,
it's not Illinois where Molly lives. Where she's ready for snow. And nothing's better than snow at Christmas time. So Molly gets super excited. She runs into Jill's room and is like, Jill, it snowed. And Jill is like, fuck off.
Yeah, Jill doesn't care. Jill's over it.
And Jill's got
no
her
paparazzi.
Jill's got her hair all pinned up in like curls, like bobby pin curls.
Yeah.
I can only imagine it's very painful to sleep in.
Yeah, she doesn't appear to be wearing like a wrap or anything, which whenever I've done like a sleep hairstyle, you should put something over it.
Yeah, just
whether it's like yeah, it's just like the curls of her head. Yeah. It is very funny. But
Jill,
yeah.
Jill is like,
she's learning.
Yeah, she's like, I don't really care. I'm sleeping. It's Christmas. So Molly goes outside alone and is like, starts talking about how she wants to be a nurse. I kind of lost the thread here where she was like, Molly has a weird imagination.
Molly's fantasies are like, wow, look at the snow. Snow reminds me of water. And waters are in hospitals, which is where I'll be when I become a nurse and then I join the war effort.
And she's like, I would wear a little cape and they'd call me Nurse McIntire. And she's like, kind of like...
Go ahead.
No, it was like I kind of read it and I couldn't figure out how to like thread it in better than this because I didn't know how it fit into the snow scene.
I think the problem is that it's like the author wanted to comment on like Molly looking for connection to her father in some way because she's like, oh, I wish like I was old enough to join the effort. Yeah, but then it becomes like a child's fantasy. She's not so aware of what like the horrors her father is
facing
out on the front. And so I think that's what the soldiers would call her. She'd ride in the ambulance out to the battlefields. She's odd.
She's a weirdo.
She is a weird. It's the same energy as and then my teacher will get married and I'll be them in the wedding.
Yes.
La 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 la. And you're like, no.
It's a weird type of fantasy that Molly kind of escapes to. It's hard to follow where it came from sometimes.
I think it's that she wants to be like included in all these more interesting narratives in her life. It almost not to truly project stuff that's not even in the subtext of these books because there's barely any subtext in these books. So, let me spin you a tale. It does feel like Molly maybe is an odd duck in her dreams because it does sort of feel like she's in this big family. Her dad is gone. She's in unprecedented times. Although there was a World War I, so how unprecedented can the current time be? But I do feel like her delusions of grandeur of like the other lives she would live or where she would become so important to other people or she would go to the battlefield and be like Nurse McIntyre
Mm-hmm.
in my ambulance. I think it's just because I feel like she just is like, anything is better than what I'm doing right now. So let me like escape away.
Yeah. No, and I guess that makes sense. It just always does feel a little bit like cuckoo bananas when she has these. But luckily she's like brought out of it by Ricky nailing her with a snowball from his window
From his window?
where he's informing snowballs on the sill apparently, and he like,
Stockpiling?
yeah, and he starts being like war jokes and being like the amazing ace flyer Ricky McIntyre like kills the German, and Molly is like tee hee hee, and then Jill comes down and is like, Ricky, you better fucking close that window. You're sending a draft through the house, and he just disappears, and Jill's like, I'm up anyway, sure, I'll play with you, which is kind of like sweet, I guess.
It is cute.
And so they like tromp through the yard, and lo and behold, they find a giant package that someone delivered in the dead of night, apparently, from Dad. And it says, don't open till Christmas. And Jill's like, this is great. We should tell Mom. And Molly's like, no, it says don't open till Christmas. Keep it a surprise. We're going to surprise Mom with it. And it is Christmas Eve, so it's not that late, but I think the subtext of this book is that Mom is kind of crashing out about Dad. And I feel like it
Yeah.
would have helped to let Mom know that Dad was okay and sent the package.
The most insane thing about their decision to keep it a secret is that they actively talk out. I guess it's in the next chapter, but they actively talk out wanting to tell Mom.
Yeah.
Like, we should tell Mom. And Molly crashes out and is like, well, one more person knows, and that's just one more person away from everybody knowing. So no, Mom is over. I agree. I think like, hey, your mom, who hasn't had like any time to do, it seems, anything for Christmas, you don't think she might want to know that the box from her husband arrived?
The box that she's probably like is distracted by wondering when it's coming because the kids are
Right.
asking about it. Because we know at least Molly and Brad are asking about it, I'm assuming.
What? And we have to assume that Mom got a letter from him at some point to be like, I will be sending the kids like a box.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't, very notably at the beginning of the book, she doesn't say anything to be like, let's not get our hopes up. Like, no, like your dad is very busy. She doesn't do any of like the telltale parent stuff of like, I'm starting to plant the seed of disappointment so it grows into a
Like,
tree.
she's kind of worried, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so this isn't like a fun surprise for Mom. This is just causing Mom like undue stress, thinking her husband may have like been like killed in action before he could send this fucking box.
Mom's like, does Brad have 50 pennies I can borrow to shop for my children's gifts?
So she's like, so they're like, all right, well, we won't tell her. So they put it in the attic, and they decide not to tell anyone about it, and they leave it there. And then we get into chapter 4, the Mary McIntires. And this is where we find out that though it was Molly's idea to hide the package, she is a terrible secret keeper. And like the whole day, she acts like a little weirdo. And like if Brad goes near the stairs in the attic, and keep in mind Brad's 5, he's not curious about what's upstairs in the
No.
attic. He has no reason to. She's like breathing down his neck, like,
What are you doing?
and like Jill is like, calm down, keep it cool. And same thing with Ricky. She's like following Ricky around, making sure he's not going upstairs. And she's being the most obvious secret keeper I've ever seen. No one like, I'm like, this was your idea, ma'am. Like, you gotta own it or stop it, you know?
My favorite part is the line that says the secret would be safe while they were all at church. Because she's like, thank God, thank God we're in God's house now.
Yeah.
And I want to keep this secret on my own. God will keep this secret for me.
Yeah. So they go to church, and Molly puts on her American Girl doll dress, a nice little green velvet number, which again also feels un-Molly a little bit.
Yeah, it should have an egregious pattern on it.
Or it should just be like a little plaid shirt and skirt, I felt like. But wearing a cute little dress doesn't feel very Molly to me at this point.
Honestly,
in
her
Molly's career.
sister is wearing what looks like a gray dress with like a plaid collar on it
Yeah.
in the art. That feels more like a Molly outfit.
Yeah, but they gotta sell the merch. So this is where it kind of comes back with that. But they're like, so they're at church, and they're singing, and they're singing Silent Night. They're holding candles, and Molly sees that Mom has like a single tear falling down her face. And again, mom is like, mom thinks her husband's dead. Mom is like, he didn't send the
It's
package.
over.
He said it would be here by like the 23rd. It's not here. How am I going to tell the kids on Christmas morning that the package isn't here? And I'm going to have to explain to them that I don't know where dad is. And she's like crashing out.
Yeah, big time.
But then Molly's like, but then she seemed happy later because she said happy Christmas to a few people. And I'm like, okay,
I don't think
like,
Molly knows how to read her mom at all.
no, not at all. So they finish church, they go home, they eat breakfast for dinner, which is kind of cute.
The
Also like a
best.
nice hack to like not have to cook a big meal for Christmas Eve dinner. Um
100%.
and then they do all their stuff and they head to bed, except Jill and Molly set their alarms for like 12 p.m. so they can wake up and sneak and get the package.
It's
So
very cute.
they wake up, they meet each other in the hallway, and they walk down the steps and they see that the Santa gifts are already there. And Molly says, like, oh, Santa came early. And this is the other time that I think it's obvious because then they start giggling. They both like get into a fit of
Interesting.
giggles. So Molly's like, oh, looks like
Mhm.
Santa already was here. And they both are like, and they like literally get into a fit of giggles for like a minute.
That's fair. Yeah, it is suspicious behavior.
Yeah, because I would be, if I was believing in Santa.
When were you told? I was trying to think about it when I was reading that Santa wasn't real.
So
Or when did you know?
I was officially told, I think, when I was 10, but I had suspicions starting at 8, I think.
Okay.
I was pretty sure, and I, like, tricked my dad into telling me that, none of the creatures were real because, we were
None
looking
of the
for
creatures is hilarious.
well, so when I was 8, this is where it kind of, like, broke for me was I was at my grandparents' house, and I lost a tooth, and, I woke up with my grandpa putting his hand under my pillow to, like, put the tooth fairy money under my pillow.
Uh,
Sorry, should I say that in a different order?
no, that's funny. I liked it.
And so that obviously told me that the tooth fairy wasn't real because
That's fair.
I knew what he was.
Well, that's
And then I was like, well, if she's not real, then none of them are real, you know?
that's
Um,
so my grandmother was a dental hygienist
uh-huh.
in one of her many side quest careers. Um so I had a tooth fairy for a while and then she just became the tooth fairy. She was like, "Well, I'm your tooth fairy." And then she would just give me like indiscriminate bundles of cash. Like, it was, like, a standard amount when it was the tooth fairy when I lost my teeth, and then as I got older and was losing teeth, she'd be like, "Here's $20, here's $5, here's $2, here's a dollar coin." She was not a very good tooth fairy, but she was my tooth fairy, so I'll take her.
But yeah, I kind of had suspicions because I was like, well, if the tooth fairy's not real, why would any of the other ones be real, right? So I started like making notes of things. And then Easter when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, I forget which one. Uh we were looking for eggs in the house and I was in the like computer room, which is an antiquated term, with my dad and I was looking we had found like everything but 2 eggs, right? And I went like my dad was like following me around looking for the egg and I went, "Gee, dad, where'd you hide it?" And he was
Oh my
like
god.
and he went, "Oh, I don't remember." And I was like, "Aha!"
You're like, "Gotcha." It's funny now that you say that. I didn't have lore. I guess I thought the Easter Bunny was real for a while, but I never had conversations about any of them being fake. I
Mhm.
caught my parents. I found a big Barbie set I got for a birthday
Okay.
or for Christmas in my parents' closet while they were out. And then I didn't tell them that I knew for 2 years.
Yeah, but sometimes it's easy to like fool yourself into thinking that that was like not there, you know?
Oh, yeah. Also, you know this about me. I'm all about the whimsy. It's totally fine if people, like, if parents are done, like, doing holidays or whatever, or don't want to, or can't afford it, whatever, and then are like, now's the time to, like, say it. But I still think it's fun. I still look at the NORAD Santa tracker every year on Christmas. It's fun. I don't, it's kind of like, I think, you're an enjoyer of a good birthday party too. why are so many adults so desperate to like lose the whimsy of holidays, parties, celebrate? Like I know I'm preaching to the choir here,
No, but
but
I roll my eyes because I'm like, well, what else do we have? Like,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, fucking A, like, I'm just supposed to work my job and like not have any fun and not like anything at all anymore except for like generic things that everybody likes. So, anyway, I'll get off my personal soapbox about whimsy, but
no, but like, just my point of that was like, I think if I had believed in Santa and I came downstairs and saw Santa's gifts with like
yeah.
my older sister, I would be like, oh my God, Santa came. He already came.
Yes.
But if I didn't believe in Santa and me and my older sister went down the steps and one of us was like, oh, looks like Santa was here, we would laugh.
Well, okay, 100%. In that case, I agree with your read of
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
That was just my read on it. So they like tee hee hee giggle and then they go out to the yard and they get the bag and they just plop this brown paper box underneath the tree and they're like, mission success. We're not gonna open it and put the presents out. We're just gonna leave it here.
Yeah. It is a little funny.
And then they go to bed and they wake up and Brad is the first one who wakes up and is like banging on everyone's door, which makes sense because he's the only one who believes in Santa. So
Yeah. He's
like,
excited.
he's like, we gotta go see what Santa brought. Like, everyone wake up. And the McIntires have a rule that no one can go downstairs till everyone is up, which is, I think, a pretty common rule. It's my family had the same rule where it was like you had to wait at the top of the steps until all your siblings were awake. And then we would all go downstairs together. But my dad would have to play this song called The Bells of Dublin before we went downstairs. And we listened to this entire Irish Christmas album that has no songs that you've ever heard as Christmas songs before. But it was like,
Okay.
it starts with a song called The Bells of Dublin. And then the second song is called St. Stephen's Day Murders. And we would just, it's like, that is like, when I think
Hey,
of Christmas morning, I think of, I'll post a link to it in
the
the show.
murders.
Yeah, I'll post a link to it in the show notes because it is kind of like a bob if you like Irish like folk music, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a funny random thing that I'm just like, oh, it's Christmas time, and it's like,
Ah,
oh, the bells of Dublin.
put it on.
put on that track. And so everyone goes downstairs and they see the box, and I think Ricky says, it's a box from Dad, and Mom kind of loses it.
Big time.
She's like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, there's a box from Dad under the tree. And then Molly and Jill are like, surprise! And Mom is like screaming, crying, throwing up. And she like hugs Jill, and then she hugs Molly, and it even says like Molly could feel Mom trembling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Mom is like overcome with like,
And you're like, hey, Molly, maybe we should have told Mom.
I think we should have told Mom at the end of this book. I think it would have just helped Mom a little bit.
Maybe enjoy the holiday at all.
Yeah, maybe not be just like literally sick to her stomach, wondering what happened to her husband. But I do have another note about that in a second. So they all do that, and then everyone gets the present they want. Jill gets the hat, Molly gets a nurse doll, so double bonus. Brad gets a canteen, and Ricky gets a scarf. So I guess Mom did tell Dad what everyone specifically wanted, because they literally all mentioned those gifts like at the very beginning of this book. So unless he's really, really lucky.
Yeah, I was a little curious on the timeline of if the kids had maybe been asking for that stuff for a while, so she needed to write it preemptively in a letter to get it to him, or like, I mean, the telephone existed, but I can't imagine she
Yeah, I
was
think
getting
they
to
sent
telephone
letters.
him.
I'm just wondering, I guess one thing I'd like to look up is how long it took letters to get to people during the war. You know, like I know we had planes and stuff, but I also don't think it was like the main priority of the planes to be like sending
No.
letters to soldiers.
Also, even now, it still takes like
6 or 7 days.
yeah, for international mail.
I guess if she had them right list by like December 1st, she could have sent it. But then he's sending package. I don't know. It just the timeline feels
Yeah.
a little bit hard for like Dad getting specific gifts, you know?
No, I agree.
So,
So
but he did, so we can't question it. It's Christmas miracle. And then
that's right.
this was something I noticed when I was just rereading it to write the notes. I didn't notice it on the first one, but Mom asks what time it is, and Ricky, who always wears a watch, which is a note in the book, says it's like 7:03 a.m. Ew, gross early. But mom is like, we should turn
I
on the
know.
radio right now. Let's turn on the radio right now.
Right now.
And so they turn on the radio and they're listening to some like war broadcast being like, Merry Christmas from all the troops abroad, like fighting the war effort. And we've got a real eager man here going to tell you and his family Merry Christmas. And then this is Captain James McIntire. And everyone's like, Dad.
Oh my God.
And the first time I read this, I was like, what a weird coincidence that they turned it on and Dad was on the radio. But now in hindsight, I think Mom knew he was going to be on the radio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yes. So I think Mom knew. I think I skimmed that part the first time when Mom was like urgently like, let's turn on the radio now. So I think that was Mom's surprise that she knew.
Yeah.
And probably when she confirmed just moments before that Dad wasn't dead, she was like, we should turn on the radio because he's going to be alive now that I know. Thank God.
Phew. Yeah. Yeah.
So they hear their dad, and I will say this did kind of make me like tear up a little bit.
It's good. It's a good ending to the book.
Yeah, because I bet it was. They haven't heard their dad talk in months. You know, probably they get his letters, but to hear their dad talk on the radio and wish them a Merry Christmas, I think was probably very nice. And it says that like a bunch of other people came on after, but Molly like couldn't hear them because she was so happy to hear from her dad. And so
yeah, it's cute.
I thought that was sweet. I did like tear up a little bit. I'm but a woman, you know.
You know, it's good to have softness in your heart.
Yeah, exactly. And so the book ends, and we do a peek into the past. And off the top, I'll just say I think Molly's peeks into the past are the most boring, so far.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we know enough about like World War II that it's not anything that we don't kind of already have a basis. Whereas some of the Victorian stuff and some of the pioneer stuff is a little bit, even as an adult, just interesting to kind of read.
Yeah, but it also feels like we've said more different than the lives we're living right now.
Yeah.
Versus.
But it just does feel like with the Molly ones, it's kind of just like everyone was fighting, even when you were home, and you made sacrifices, and that was tough. And this is more of the same with that. It talks about how a lot of times the soldiers couldn't come home for Christmas or for holidays unless they got furlough, and that was rare. And even if you had family members around the country, because of like war rations on oil and gas and rubber for tires and things like that, they most likely weren't coming for the holidays that year. And then it talks about the victory speed, which was a like 35-mile-per-hour mandate across all the highways. And I did write, much like Celia and my rant in book 1, no one in America would follow that today.
No, anything. I like it. I think that's the most interesting thing about the beginning of the past is reading about, the different things that like we as a nation collectively decided we could do.
Can you imagine if you could only go 35 miles per hour like anywhere? I don't even go 35 miles per hour in like a 35 mile per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. I go like 40.
Oh, I was going to say, it was like in my fucking neighborhood, the amount of times I've almost gotten in accidents where I'm driving completely at a normal rate and people are like zooming around me. Yeah. Literally somebody pulled into the shoulder this morning when I was driving to go to the gym. I was like, la 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 la. And I was like turning and a car went around me because I was going too slow. I need the speed limit.
I was on a road trip a few months ago and I was going, it was 55 and I was going 65 and a car was honking at me for going too slow. Like,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
And I was with a friend last week who's not from the US and I was going, like, again, if you're a cop, don't listen to me, but I was booking it. I was going like 85 and like a 55 but everyone around me was going just as fast as me. And
sure.
My friend like turned to me and he was like, does anyone follow the speed limit? He's like, because I was going to tell you to drive slower. And he goes, but like everyone's driving faster than you. And I was like, yeah,
that's the catch.
Because I didn't notice the speed limit had changed from 75 to 55 pretty quickly, and I hadn't noticed. And because no one else was slowing down. And like again, I was being like someone was tailgating me as I was going like 80 in this.
Yeah, of course.
So
I get so nervous too because I'm like, y'all know this is gonna be bad. if one of us fucks up even slightly.
Yeah. And I'll make it clear, guys. I'm a 5 mile per hour over the speed limit gal normally. I've just had a few instances where I'm like, I'm going pretty fast, and so is everyone around me. So what are we doing?
Yeah,
So
it's tough.
I don't think we would do well with a victory limit anymore.
No.
Yeah. It'd be
God,
tough.
no. Not here,
Yeah.
especially.
And then we just get a little bit more ration talk about how like making cookies was different. They don't really tell us how to make cookies with less, but I wish they kind of had because that was a little bit
That would have
interesting.
been cute. Maybe it's in one of the craft books.
Yeah. And they tell us about pipe cleaner ornaments, which actually also did look cute as like a
Okay.
alternative ornament.
I like that it said pipe cleaner pipe dreams
Yep.
on the tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay.
Feels like something we might make at one of our girly craft nights soon.
Some pipe cleaner pipe dreams.
Yeah, some pipe cleaner pipe.
They're pretty cute. I do like them.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends again with just some like, God bless America, the greatest country in the world.
Always.
Nonsense. And so that's kind of a wrap on Molly's surprise. So just some like closing thoughts for me is that it was a cute little Christmas story, but it did feel very much like a Christmas movie almost. Like if you were watching like the Disney Channel in 2004, it feels like it would be a very special episode of one of the shows that you watch.
Yes, 100% does feel like a holiday episode. Like
Yeah.
nothing too major happens, nothing goes horribly awry. Nobody except for mom crashes out.
Yeah. And that's kind of in the
Yeah.
background.
It's like you said, I thought it was cute. I thought it was easy to read, but I didn't have like a lot to say in my soul, in my heart, because it was just kind of like a fun, cute book. It's like a book I feel like you'd read like a kid sibling or like a niece or a nephew, like that you're visiting during the holidays. If they were
Yeah.
like, read a Christmas book, and like that was, you were like, oh, I loved this one when I was a kid.
It's largely inconsequential because even if you think in Samantha's surprise and Kirsten's surprise, in Kirsten's surprise we get trunk and we get doll. And so there is like something that came up in the previous books does get resolved.
And a
And
cultural aspect.
Yeah, and the Swedish Christmas, St. Lucia's Day. And in Samantha's surprise, Gard and Cornelia get engaged, so it also does kind of further a storyline that comes up like throughout the rest of the books. And this one, I would say, if we hadn't read this book, we would not be any less. We would not know, like if we just had skipped this book and read Happy Birthday, Molly, we wouldn't know that we missed anything. You know?
No, completely agree.
Yeah.
That was what I left with this thinking. I was just more surprised that it was so lacking impact.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad thing. It wasn't a bad book, but
it does feel, I think, just kind of too, one thing I didn't really think about it until we started talking about this book, but I do kind of feel like I wonder what's going on behind the scenes with the Molly books a little bit, because it does feel like we keep kind of like having to be pushed back into line with a story. And
yeah,
it feels a little bit like the author may have had a different idea of how she wanted things to go than like the publisher or like Pleasant Company.
yeah,
Because like we said, there are some things that just feel incongruous to Molly's personality that just feel like it's like she needs to want a doll because we're selling a doll, and she has to have a Christmas outfit. So we have to have her do something where she's wearing a Christmas outfit.
right. And she has to have a Christmas story.
It feels like, and I write for people sometimes, and it does feel like there are sometimes when you write a story and you have everything fleshed out the way that you know as a writer things are going to go well, and then whoever you're writing it for is like, could we add a scene with a vintage car in it?
Yeah.
And you're like,
they don't even drive anywhere in the story.
and then you have to write a scene where it's like people like, it's like someone comes in a vintage car and they ride it, and it does feel like you're like, this is bad. Like, that's kind of what I'm feeling a little bit with Molly when we have these weird moments where we're like, this feels off from what we've been kind of told about this girl. So
Yeah. Yeah, it just didn't feel like a Molly book so much as it felt like a Christmas during World War II
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Well,
So yeah, that's kind of my wrap on Molly's surprise. Do you have any feelings? Anything you want to share?
I think I've said them. I'm glad she had a good Christmas. I like I said, I don't wish her as much ill anymore. I hope she continues to get well soon, Molly. And I hope her mom gets happy. And I hope mom leaves Brad alone.
I hope mom takes a long bath on Christmas Day.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big nap too.
Yeah, I hope mom takes some Xanax or whatever.
Send those kids outside.
Send those kids outside. Have a break. And guys, send this to your friend who is a stressed out mom.
Man, we've got a couple of those. Send this to your uncle who didn't send you a Christmas gift.
Send this to your dad who is on a radio broadcast and you didn't know he was going to be.
Send this to your family member who's serving in the military.
Send this to your most realistic family member.
Send this to your big sister you wish would get a grip on reality.
And then send this to your little brother who is constantly just around your mom in a way that no one can explain.
Or send this to the person you want to ruin Santa for.
Yeah. And cut out the parts where we tell you not to listen. And if you got this far with a child and we ruined Santa, we tried a few times.
We told you. We warned you.
So, little kid, if you're listening, sometimes adults lie on podcast, and Santa is real, and he is going to bring you a PS5 this year. So
that's right, and a pony,
and a pink pony
club.
Yeah, you're gonna inherit a club. Figure out what to do with it. You are now, child, the proprietor.
You're now a business owner.
So congratulations to all the children listening. And if you're not a child, which you shouldn't be, please share this. Please rate, review, subscribe. We said at the beginning, we'll say at the end. If you're listening to this on YouTube and you've gotten this far, share us the age that you found out that Santa wasn't real. Or that Santa had other jobs.
Drop a little calm.
And just say the number. Just say the age. Just like 26. Today.
And then write a hashtag about how it made you feel.
Yeah. But that's it for me today. How about you?
That's it. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.